Scientifically, it's hardly a gamble. It's happened before, a great earthquake that destroyed San Francisco in 1906. It's estimated to have been an 8.3 on the Richter scale, which measures an earthquake's size and destructive energy. The same size earthquake they say will inevitably happen again in California.
Is there any reason to doubt the scientists who say that the big quake in California within the next 20 or 30 years is inevitable?
There's no reason to doubt them at all. In fact, we have a history in the last century of recurring earthquakes, major earthquakes, great earthquakes. We've only had one in this century in 1906, and there's no reason to believe that the pattern of the last century won't be repeated.
Is it fair to say that we're running out of time?
Well, every year we go without an earthquake, we're getting closer to the next major catastrophic earthquake.
Richard Eisner is in charge of earthquake awareness for the San Francisco Bay Area. And sitting in the football stadium at the University of California in Berkeley, he can't get any closer to a possible catastrophe.
Where we're sitting in the football stadium at Berkeley, how far are we from the nearest biggest fault?
About 2 feet. We are on the trace of the Hayward Fault, which runs from Albany down through Oakland, down through the East Bay, probably the most populated part of the Bay Area.
The population along the Hayward Fault, directly across the bay from San Francisco, has grown to more than 2 million people. The Hayward lacks the reputation of the nearby San Andreas, but not its potential for destruction. Geologists consider it one of the most dangerous faults in California, if not the world, where even a 6.5 earthquake would be devastating.
In your view as an architect, an urban planner, have we acted wisely in the face of this threat of a catastrophic earthquake?
That's the question that's embarrassing to answer, because in the last 80 or so years, until very recently, we essentially ignored the threat of earthquakes in the Bay Area. We've built on sites that are directly on top of the fault. We've built in areas where we'd expect extremely violent ground shaking, subsidence, ground failure, liquefaction. A lot of our lifelines, such as bridges and freeways, are built on areas that we would expect to have ground failure. In one case, we built an emergency operations center on the fault trace. That's a center that's responsible for the emergency broadcast system, for communicating to the public after an event. It was built to be blast-proof. It was built in the 50s as a part of the civil defense program, but it will be isolated at best after a major earthquake.
What about hospitals and medical care?
Well, there used to be a joke that if you wanted to find the Hayward Fault, you'd draw a line between the hospitals and the East Bay. And we do have a number of hospitals that are built very close to the fault. We expect a number of them to be subject to damage and potentially be victims themselves, not being able to care for the patients that would be coming in from the surrounding communities.
There are 4 hospitals, 30 schools, a power station, even a resort hotel on or near the fault line. But in a great earthquake, medical care becomes a critical issue on either side of the bay.
Most hospitals in the Bay Area are not expected to survive intact in an earthquake and will be either partially or totally incapacitated or physically fall down, as we saw happen in Mexico City.
Dr. Michael Callahan is Chief of Emergency Medicine at the University of California Hospital in San Francisco. He'd be among the first to respond to the needs of thousands injured in an earthquake.
If the earthquake were to hit tomorrow or next year, would you be ready for it? Could you deal with it?
In the sense of being able to provide the usual standard quality of care that the average American citizen expects, absolutely not, and we never will be.
What do you need that you don't have to deal with the after effects of a catastrophic earthquake in the Bay Area?
Well, just about everything, because basically the whole substructure of modern medicine is going to disappear. I mean, we count on, first of all, having a physically intact building, of having electricity, of having natural gas piped in, of having fresh, unlimited water, and having a transportation system that will bring patients to us. We also count on supplies. Very few hospitals find it economically possible to store, say, a week's worth of supplies on the premises. And as a result, we have about 1 day's worth of supplies in the hospital, and the rest are stored elsewhere, somewhere on the other side of the city where we probably wouldn't be able to get to them in an earthquake. So we're probably going to run out of all those things.